Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. Now we've got another full review for you today from the Tyranids Index, and we're going to be talking about the Zoanthropes. Now when we do this review, I am going to cut a few things out that we've done in previous reviews. I think they went on a bit too long and we can just trim a few things out, but still give you all the information that you need. Also, I will be adding something to the end of this video, so watch out for that. It will be the Planet 40k rating. So if you guys weren't aware of what that is, in 9th edition we began this, and simply at the end of the video I'm going to give a rating out of 5, and that will include 0.5s as well, and that will be my star rating, my personal rating. Now of course if you disagree with it, you just let me know down in the comments below, but yeah, I'll be giving that for the Zoanthropes at the end of this video. Right, let's crack on with the datasheet I suppose for the Zoanthropes. So, on the rear side of the data card, you can see that the unit composition is 1 Neurothrope and 2 to 5 Zoanthropes. So you probably have gathered by now that the Neurothrope is no longer it's no longer a thing in terms of characters anyway. It's still a thing in terms of the Zoanthropes unit. It's effectively like a leader now, and it will interact with one of the abilities that we'll go over in a moment. But yeah, it does kind of suck that we've lost the Neurothrope as a character, because that was one of my favourite characters from the 9th edition. Now in terms of the points cost for these things, well, 3 models is 90 points, which I think is outrageously cheap. 90 points for 3. In the previous edition there were 70 points for 1. So you can see how much of a difference that is. Now it's only 90 points for 3, and you can take up to 6 of them of course. Let's flip over to the front side of the data card and let's go through this with a fine-tooth comb. So the movement, 5 inches, they've got a little bit slower guys, so they used to be 6, they are now 5. Even though they do fly has been massively nerfed in this edition, because you've got to measure the diagonal distance when you're jumping over, terrain features and things like that. So it isn't as good as just literally taking unlimited vertical distance now. You can't do that now, so it's not as good, especially when you're only moving 5 inches. It's only going to really interact with things such as craters perhaps, or if you were to try to target, aircrafts and things like that. But other than that, it's not that great. We've then got the toughness of 5, actually as it was. Save is a 5+. Don't need to worry about that too much. There is an invuln save. We'll go over that in a moment. The wounds is now 3, so we've lost a wound. Used to be 4, and the Neurothrope used to be 6, of course. Leadership is 7+, and the object control is 1. I think we'll go over the weapons to begin, because that's the main. That's what they're about, right? They used to have the psychic phase, I suppose. Now it's all done in the shooting phase. So the range attacks, they've got 2 profiles from the Warp Blast. The first one is the Warp Blast Witchfire. It's a blast weapon, so for every 5 models in a unit, you get to add an additional attack, and it's a psychic power, of course. Now bear in mind, each model is going to have this. So if you've got a unit of 6, all 6 are going to be equipped with this Warp Blast. So the 24-inch range, the attacks are D3. So again, that could be, it will be D3 times 6 if you've got 6 of them in a unit. That's an average of 12 if you're doing averages. And then if you're hitting on a 3+, which you are, so that's an average of 8 hits there, so it's pretty good. The strength is 7, minus 2 AP, and D3 damage. So a very good, I always use this example, but in killing Marines, it's pretty good. I mean, you're definitely wounded on a 3+, even against the tougher stuff like Terminators. The AP minus 2, okay, that probably doesn't work so well on Terminators, but the standard intercessors is going to put them to a 5+ armor save, and D3 on average is 2, so it takes out a Space Marine. I mean, you get lucky sometimes, you get 3, you get unlucky sometimes, and you get the 1. That's just life, right? That's dice. Now, as for the better profile, you've got the Warp Blast Focused Witchfire. Now, this has the Lethal Hits ability on top, so every 6 to hit will basically automatically wound. Well, you don't have to roll to wound, you just automatically wound there. I hate that they've got the word wound in 2 different places. You're like automatically wounding, but you've still got to make an armor save, otherwise you haven't wounded. It's just so complicated for new players, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. So this is also a psychic attack, 24-inch range, same range there. Only 1 attack per Zoanthrope this time, so a maximum of 6 with a full unit. Hit on a 3+. Now it's strength 12. That's probably, in fact, I'm pretty sure it is our best ranged weapon in terms of strength in the Tyranids Index. So strength 12, very good anti-tank weaponry there in terms of strength. Minus 3 AP is pretty good, and the damage is D6 plus 1. With 6 shots, you're averaging 4 hits. One of them is going to auto wound because of the lethal hits. And then in terms of damage, you're looking at around 4 to 5 on average per shot that goes through, because D6 is what, 3 or 4 average, plus 1 on top of that, so 4 to 5 average. That's a lot, to be fair, that is quite a lot. Unfortunately though, these are not mortal wounds, or they're not devastating wounds, so therefore they're not going to spill to the next model and stuff like that. So even if it's, one wound model and you put 5 damage on it, it's all going to go onto that one little model. So yeah, unfortunately it's not quite like 9th edition with the mortal wounds. Now they do have melee attacks, which is the Xenos Claws and Teeth. 2 attacks each, whip skill 5+. They're now only strength 3, not strength 5. They shouldn't really be strength 5 anyway. They're not a melee unit. No AP, 1 damage. Yeah, don't let them get into combat. Right, so that is the weaponry. In fact, I want to go a little bit more in depth in the weaponry because we've got to consider things such as the hyper-adaptation ability from the detachment rules for the Invasion Hive Fleet. So you've got the 3 options that you can pick pre-game. You've got the Swarming Instincts for the Sustained Hits 1, Hyper-Aggression for the Lethal Hits, and High Predators for the Precision Hits. Now, of course, they go to, one of them is Infantry and Swarm, one is Monsters and Vehicles, and one is Characters, of course. Now, out of the 3, I kind of like the look of the last one, if I'm honest with you, because the precision strikes, so any critical hits of a 6 will give you the precision ability. So if you're going up against a character with a unit and you've got the High Predators unlocked from the get-go, I would like to use the weaker Warp Blast, which is the D3 shots per Zoanthrope. You're likely going to wound on 3s, AP -2, damage D3. Going back to those averages that we mentioned earlier with D3, with 12 attacks, hitting on 3s is about 8 hits. Now, out of those 12 attacks, you would, on average, get 2 6s there. I know this is just averages, but 2 6s will come from that volley of shots, from the Warp Blast. And bear in mind, it's also got the blast keyword, so there could potentially be even more shots, because there could be a large unit there. If it's, say, a Necron Warrior unit, that's 20 men, that could be another 4 shots right there. But 2 of those shots potentially have got the precision ability, which will go onto a character. You're wounded on 3s, AP -2, D3 mortal wounds. I mean, it's not fantastic. I'm not saying it's the best thing ever in the world, but I quite like the look of that. Considering your army wide, you're gonna have precision as well. The other ones, I mean, lethal hits with hyper aggression. You don't really need it because the Warp Blast focused Witchfire already has it. You've already got it. I mean, that's on all units as well, so it's not having the hyper aggression, you don't really need it. Sustained hits, that's a potential shout, but that's only against infantry and swarm, so that's better served on the actual Warp Blast, the standard Witchfire, the blast one, because if you're going up against vehicles and monsters, then it's not going to work, is it? So you kind of got to look at your opponent's list and kind of work out which one is needed for that. Now, continuing on with this data sheet, looking at the right hand side with the abilities, Shadow in the Warp. Now, this is actually important, but we'll talk about that in a second. Synapse, of course. In fact, they've got the Synapse keyword, as you can see at the bottom where it says all the keywords. In fact, we didn't even really go over that. Infantry, Psyker, Fly, Synapse. There's only really infantry out of all those. That's that important, as well as Synapse, of course. So Synapse, you're going to be given models within 6 inches, the ability to use 3 dice instead of 2 for battle shock tests. And if you look at the actual unique abilities, Spirit Leech, which is an aura, and a psychic ability, of course, while this unit contains the Neurothrope, so that will be your sergeant of the group, you don't remove that one until last, of course. If an enemy is within 6 inches of this unit, each time the unit fails a battle shock, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. And then one model in this unit regains up to D3 lost wounds. If you've got all your models on full wounds, then it's not going to trigger anyway, but your opponent suffering D3 mortal wounds, that could be handy. I mean, if you're surrounded by loads of models, which is not ideal because, again, they're not really a melee unit, you don't want that to be happening. But if that is the case, and you can use your Shadow in the Warp ability, you can force battle shocks all over the shop, and you can get them to fail it. And if they fail it, D3 mortal wounds going off all over the place. So it is a situational one, but it can be triggered and used quite well. And then the second ability, which is Warp Field Aura, which is another psychic ability, of course. Tyranid units within 6 inches of the unit, they will have the 6+ invulnerable saves. This is going to be really good on your little gaunts, your little bugs. Arguably, you could just use the go to ground stratagem for 1 command point, and they'll also gain light cover as well, or the benefits of cover, which is now the 10th edition term. So there is other ways to do it. In fact, there are further ways to feel no pains and stuff as well, but that is one of the ways. And yeah, I mean, it's a nice extra touch to their abilities, I suppose. Now, they have lost from 9th edition, which was the old Spirit Leech, the old version of Spirit Leech, where you regain wounds for, as soon as you throw out a mortal wound, you regain wounds, but as the psychic phase has now gone, you're not likely to be doing that, so that's a good change really for us. So yeah, that is the data sheet, and we are going to move over to a couple of bits of synergy from the index, I suppose. First of all, Alien Cunning, which is an enhancement. Of course, you're not sticking these on the Zoanthropes and not the Neurothropes. It's not a character anymore. But you could put it on a nearby character that is allowed to take enhancements, which isn't an epic hero. And you can effectively redeploy 3 of your Tyranid units. You could even put them in strategic reserves if you wanted to. But it could mess up your opponent in terms of counter deploying and all that stuff. We've probably mentioned that a few times now. A rapid regeneration, which is a good stratagem to use in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, and you can effectively turn on a 6+ feel no pain save, and if they're within synapse, which they will be because they've got synapse, it'll be a 5+ feel no pain instead. And when you're combining that alongside a 4+ invulnerable save, that's quite good. That's quite a lot of resiliency. But the one that I quite like the most, and I wanted to talk to you about this one, is the Tyrannocyte. Not often I talk about the Tyrannocyte, and not when I'm playing my list anyway. But I wanted to mention this because the transport capacity of a Tyrannocyte is 20 Tyranid infantry models, and if of course they've got more than 1 wound, then they're going to take up 3 slots in that 20 capacity. Now Zoanthropes have got 3 wounds, so of course they're going to each take up 3 spots in that Tyrannocyte. So when you've got a full unit of 6 of them, that's going to be 18 slots, so they're going to fit just nicely, in fact, in that transport. Now why I like this is, looking at the Tyrannocyte's ability, which is aerial seeding, this model must start the battle in reserves, and they're not counted towards the maximum allowed in reserves, la-di-da-di-da. They can be set up in the reinforcement step of your first, second or third movement phase. So most important part there is the first movement phase. Then they must immediately disembark 9 inches away, da-da-da-da-da. That's the basic deep strike rules. I mean, in fact, it's even better than deep strike because when you disembark, you're also gaining ground as well. You're gaining, I believe it's 3 inches.
A few moments later.
Yeah, you got to be wholly within 3 inches. Sorry, I just had to check that in case it's changed because I haven't checked that yet. But yeah, they're wholly within 3 inches, so you could in fact get closer if you wanted to, or potentially further back because you don't really want to get charged, do you? When we're not making a charge. And our warp blast is 24-inch range. Now why this is good is from turn 1 you can literally pop in 24 inches away exactly from a unit that you want to start targeting, whether it's from the warp blast, you know, the focus witchfire, or the standard blast ability, the standard blast weapon, but you could take your pick there and you're pretty much guaranteed to be within range because of the Tyrannocyte. Now of course if there's infiltrator models within the no man's land, then it's going to affect this slightly. But I quite like the idea of this because the Tyrannocyte is 105 points, right? So you might think, oh, why would you pay 105 points? But if you remember how criminally cheap the Zoanthropes were, 30 points per model. Even if you averaged it all out, it comes out as an average of 47.5 points if you combine them, you know, just to get the Zoanthropes into position. And you've still, of course, got the pod on the game in the game as well. So it's an option, and I quite liked it because it's something a bit different. So let's talk about the battlefield role for the Zoanthropes. So they're a very useful squad of damage dealers, especially to those bigger threats, but they've also got the flexibility of going towards the smaller infantry threats, Space Marines being an obvious example. Now they're less efficient against the lighter infantry due to the standard warp blast being D3 damage. You don't want to be firing that at 1 wound models with low toughness, it's just an absolute waste. So you're looking at, you know, towards more elite infantry for the standard weapon, and the focus one you're looking at monsters and vehicles. But they do need to avoid light screens, they do need to avoid hordes, and they definitely do not want to be getting charged. Now ideally you want to put all your gaunts around the Zoanthropes so that they can't be charged, and of course you're going to be giving those gaunts a 6+ invulnerable save because of the ability, so it kind of works as a nice bit of synergy there, and you're giving them synapse too, of course. Now they've also got the capability of camping on an objective because they're very resilient, they're very durable, 4+ invuln save, 3 wounds apiece, and toughness 5 as well. I think they could hold onto ground quite comfortably. But let's get on to the pros and cons before getting into Planet 40k rating for the Zoanthropes. So the pros, there's quite a lot here. So the Zoanthropes pros: 4+ invulnerable save, they're very durable, they've got synapse, shadow in the warp, and the Spirit Leech ability, which will kind of relate to Shadow in the Warp, because if you can get that off at the same time, brilliant. The Warp Blast is D3 attacks per model, that's the standard blast. It's quite a lot of attacks. The 6+ invulnerable save aura to friendlies, especially the little bugs, that's very handy for them. You can now fit these into a Tyrannocyte, as mentioned earlier. I think it's quite a cool little combo there. They're easy to purchase as a full unit now. Previously, when we wanted to buy these in Games Workshop, you know, on the website or in shops, you had to buy 2 boxes of 3 to get a full unit, but then you wanted a Zoanthrope as well, right? And that was in the box. So you had to somehow get one off eBay or something, and it became a bit of a mess trying to get hold of a full unit and then a Zoanthrope as well. But now it just sits in the unit. It's just straightforward 2 boxes, and it's one of the few high strength ranged attacks we've got in the index. I'm pretty certain it is the highest strength in terms of range. If I'm wrong on that, let me know down in the comments below. I mean, I think even the heavy venom cannons are strength 9, aren't they? So yeah, they've got to be the best. Right, as for the cons for the Zoanthropes, they're useless in melee. Once they're in melee, strength 3, and they're not doing much anyway. They've lost a wound since 9th edition. They used to have 4 wounds, now got 3. Bit sad. Warp Blast can only fire into combat. So what I mean by that is if you can now target monsters and vehicles even though you're not in that combat, or even though they're in engagement range with other friendly units, but because you've got Blast, you simply can't shoot it. The D6 +1 damage can be swingy. I mean, the +1 is nice, but if you roll like a 1 or a 2, it just feels a bit, you know, it's not that great. And we've virtually lost the Zoanthrope, which I like the Zoanthrope, but that's gone. Well, it's gone-ish. Sergeant. And finally, Fly with the slow movement kinda sucks now. So this is the part of the video where we're going to be doing our Planet 40k ratings, and to be honest with you, can't really look past a 5-star rating. And that sounds like a bit of an obvious one, but the fact that these things are so cheap, 30 points per model, and they're dishing out that much damage, the highest damage in terms of range capability and strength, sorry, that's mad, 30 points. I mean, some armies will pay just that for getting a las cannon, do you know what I mean? And we're getting the entire model with the in-run save, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't increase the points value of these some point later down the line. So guys, that is the end of the review for the Zoanthropes. If you have got a comment to make, put it down in the comments box below. If you agree with my rating or disagree, also let me know yours. But yeah, guys, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.